Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interlude of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zill. I hope y'all have been doing well and keeping safe. Today, I actually have an exciting topic that I'm very keen to chat about, voted on from our patrons, and that is all about the wonderful world of commissioning art and how to do so and stories from that vein. And so today, I have my good friend K-Libra here to help me delve into this topic.
Yeah, hey, it's good to be on here, especially talking about this. It matters to me a lot, and I have been lucky enough that with my experience that actually some people have asked me for advice before, and so I guess I got a lot to say about it. So when people are new to it, I'm just like, okay, I got a few things you should know.
Yeah, I feel like there's always like pointers that we can give to people when they're dipping their toe into the world of commissioning, either from the perspective of commissioning others or being commissioned themselves. And I feel like there's just so much to be said on the topic. So
Uh-huh.
but before I forget, just a reminder, as always, that if you like the conversations that we have on here, you can subscribe to our Patreon at TF Tuesday Pod. We have lots of great conversations in our little Discord that's linked to it, and you can get your name in the credits. So, and you can also vote on the topics that we talk about, like this one. So, if that's something you're interested in, please feel free to join us. The links are in the show notes. And as well, currently you can find us on Twitter, but if that goes under, we'll find another platform to post some of our advertising on. That is something I am actively thinking about right now these days. But obviously, in the meantime, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those good stuff, we are still there. We're on YouTube, not going anywhere on those fronts. So,
Yep.
okay, out of the way, that's been done. So, Libra, when people have come to you in the past asking for advice, what's the first thing you think of when it comes to giving advice to
How to
someone who's thinking about taking on commissions?
Okay, so I think that there's like two things to discuss. I think first is how to
Mhm.
commission art and how to go about actually doing it yourself. So,
Yes.
and if we have time, I'd like to be able to at least touch on a bit of both. But if you're going to start
Oh,
commissions,
yeah. We'll be able to do both. Don't worry.
all right. So when it comes to actually doing it yourself, ah, you gotta figure out what kind of work you're going to be willing to do. So how far do you want to be able to take pieces? What's an acceptable amount of work for you to do to invest your time and effort into? It's very difficult to imagine, doing any kind of work like that when you have no idea what your limitations are. If, it's like, oh, I'm going to hire you for a 50-page comic. Like, no, don't, please do not please do not do that sort of thing. If you feel like backgrounds are like a little too difficult for you outside of a pay setting, sorry, then like, don't do it for money. You'll hate it.
Yeah.
Um, Try to make sure that you start off with very comfortable things. Oh, they're just messy sketches, and they look kind of crappy, but maybe people buy them. But I guess I could do it for money. Then okay, do that. Just establish your comfort zones for what you could do most easily, and I don't know, you test yourself from there. Because the theme also throughout any of this advice is that you'll be tweaking it as you go along until you find a system that works best for you.
Oh, yeah. Something I've always heard from people in particular that has always kind of struck me, and this isn't something really that I can do with my stuff, but I have heard from a lot of drawn artists that one of the ways that you can kind of dip your toe into things while still maintaining kind of your initial, I guess, comfort level with things is to start off with your character here type commissions, because then you've already like nailed out the pose and you like obviously have flexibility for the commissioner, but you solidify a lot of like the ground rules beforehand. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Your character here seemed like a pretty good idea. I feel like if you're the kind of person who can just kind of make a lot of ideas at any point and just not finish them, they may be a good fit for you. They're not too good a fit for me because a lot of the things that I don't finish aren't something that I want to continue on, or I'd like them more for me.
Right.
So I wouldn't. So that's why I don't do them. But when you got people just like, oh, I did this, I did that, and maybe you're pretty good at like some really rough stuff at the start, then yeah, consider your character here pieces. Especially if you're really good about like editing, like, oh, you drew like, this kind of like dog looking character or whatever, but you don't mind changing it to like any other kind of face. Yeah, all that stuff. I think that's actually a pretty good idea if you if you can, if you're prolific, if you're able to
Yeah.
do a lot.
Yeah. And, one of the things I think that people at the beginning who are offering commissions also really struggle on is like getting an understanding as to building an audience and knowing what the right point is to do so. Because I know that there are obviously, things like Twitter will always magnify the one person who like starts out just like throwing out a bunch of really great pieces, all of a sudden their like followers count explodes. But most people don't fall into that bucket, and I think sometimes people wonder like, oh, am I at the point yet where I would even have enough of an audience who would want to get commissions from me? So I'm curious, do you think there's like a certain threshold people should wait for, or should people just like go in whenever they think that they can handle it themselves and ignore what the size of their audience is?
Oh, go into it whenever. I started commissions, I didn't wait until I had like 100 followers, 1,000 followers. I just did it because I really was like completely nobody. I don't even feel like I'm somebody now, but I definitely didn't have any kind of following. And I just said to myself, somebody will notice and I can do it. And that forces attention on you anyway, especially if you're going to be posting your commission work. You
Mhm.
will just, yeah, you'll just be getting seen. And that is why, if you're going to do it, don't wait for like a follower threshold or something. Just be doing it, but let people know. So yeah, put it at the start of your page or your profile, things like that.
Mhm. It's interesting you say that because when I actually started doing commissions, I did wait for a specific follower count number because I was concerned that I wouldn't have any pull if I didn't have enough followers. And considering, photo manips are a bit more of a niche, I was concerned that if I opened up and then no one was interested, I would just feel crushed and then I wouldn't do it again anyways.
Oh,
So I actually waited until I had like, I think it was like 500 followers on FA or something. And then I was like, okay, I can start doing this maybe, and maybe someone will be interested. But you have a good point in the sense that sometimes you just kind of have to put yourself out there and go from that. I just know it can be daunting and there can be it can be a little bit demotivating if you open and then no one's actually interested.
oh yeah, it definitely can be, but also a little bit that I can imagine can maybe help some people is that if you're gonna be doing commission work, there's no need to feel too bad if you're not in need of it. If you're going to be starting this and you need the money, this is like really, really vital for your survival, then I can understand the stress. But if you're going to be doing this, kind of like, oh man, I just kind of hope this takes off, but otherwise I'm stable, then, don't worry too much about it. It'll pick up. Um, you'll get like the one or two things that will get people noticing and hopefully don't pigeonhole you into something that you don't want to do, like or get asked for a lot. Yeah, but that's generally what I think works the best. People like new art, even though it doesn't. That's a different rant. But like people, if you're new, then there's a pretty good chance that I think people will want to look. At least that's my outlook. Hopefully, it's
Mhm.
true. People want more. People always want more. That was my attitude when I first started on commissions. Was that I knew that the community wanted more. Like fuck, I want more. But
Yeah, I mean, same.
yeah, so if you're there and you're willing to make more for people, and people will want their ideas made, maybe you'll hit a chord with
Mhm.
somebody or a group of people, and your execution matters. Things like that.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. And I think it's also important, building off of the point of, if someone is like, doing this because like that is their main source of income versus something that you might be doing on the side. I think one thing that artists can kind of, and this is like, I think everyone to some degree can fall into this pit sometimes, but sometimes there's a concern around, you need to take on stuff because you really need the money, and then you might fall behind on commissions, and it can become a self-fulfilling cycle. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on ways to prevent from oneself from falling into that trap. I know I have thoughts, but I wanted to hear yours first.
Well, which cycle exactly? Because I can think of a few.
I mean, I think the main one that I think of, and I think some artists have experienced to some degree, is you take on commissions, and then if it's like, vital to your survival, then you like haven't had as much time because, life shit is happening, and then you'll have to take on more. And then how do you like handle the old ones versus the new ones? And like, how do you manage the timeline moving forward in terms of working on them?
Oh man, you see, that's tough mostly because even though it was my only source of income for a while, I wouldn't say I really needed it for my survival. But, I mean, from my perspective, you just got to do your best to charge what you're worth, or as close to it as you could possibly manage. If you're going to be working on the canvas, every little bit of time that you're spending still working on something, especially if you're working for flat rates, if you are going to be doing it like, piece by piece, then yeah, the longer you take on one piece, the less value that piece really has for you. And you'll just want to make sure that it's going to be worth your time. And it's always best to expect that it'll take more time than you think. It's always going to be harder. It's always going to be something like, just expect these things. Like, there will be snags. And if there isn't and it's really good and it runs smoothly, awesome. It's not to put pressure on any artist. It's simply to make people aware that you don't need to feel bad if suddenly you're like, oh man, I had this all planned out, but like I keep screwing up on this one part. And you still got to satisfy the client. And
yeah, exactly.
It's good for you to know that the amount of time that you're taking or the snags you're hitting are not really, something like fundamentally wrong with you or your process. It's just like what happens with creative things. And the other thing, if it's part of your survival, then if you're going to be charging what you're worth, then that means you can afford maybe to have a little problem here or take some time off if your mental health is suffering. If you feel like you're actually at least getting close to what you're worth, that will help your attitude toward the entire process, and you feel like you could keep going. Now, yeah, I've never really gotten to speak to people who were like, well, no, I have actually. I've spoken with Shiro. It's a really big hustle. They really got to work hard. And yeah, he does his best. But yeah, like just like a few people that I've really gotten to talk to who really survive off of this stuff. And you can do it. Just, try to get what you're worth, and make sure that you just account for the fact that something may take longer, especially if your clients are. Oh yeah, that's another piece of advice. Can I just like careen to this?
Sure. Go for it.
Okay, I can't stress this enough. I am very much for like the autonomy of the artist. Get your money first. Get your money first. None of this.
I was going to get to that question, but okay, continue.
Get your money first. Do not do this thing like, when it's done, pay me. No. Do not fall for this like fear of, oh, there are other artists who have like taken money and they've never given anything. If that's not going to be you, then don't fucking worry about it. Just get your money. All right. And it's just like, oh, I may feel demotivated after the fact. I think you should do it anyway, because you need to protect yourself. Your chances of getting fucked over are way higher than any customer. So the simple fact that a customer will often be happy, I think, with a particular artist, and they'll get more art from them. Then it becomes like a reliable trade. Fine for them, but you don't know who you're going to be dealing with at any point. Your odds of getting screwed are way higher than than most customers, I think. And since you're the one who's wasting time, if you're losing out on your money, you're the one that hurts the most.
How do you feel about people who do like a deposit system instead, like doing 50% up front and then like the rest at the end?
I think that's okay, because then I guess like pragmatically speaking, if you want to put it that way, then what you have there is a standoff of like, hey, I finished your art. Do you want it? Do you want it or not? I still have some of your money. Cost sunk fallacy like comes into play with that. So it's like, do you really want to get nothing? Do you really want to get nothing for something? Give me the money. And I think that's okay. If you feel also like it keeps your motivation in check while also like, making sure that you have some protection, then I think that's fine. I just think that the artist should have, like I said, like the autonomy. Get your money and do your work, and just work like that. Deposit system, I think, is okay because you're always getting something. I guess the bottom line should be get something, but not like a tiny amount. It's like, here, just put a 20% deposit. No. Don't do that.
I mean, it sounds like, have you had any experiences where someone tried to screw you over and that like illuminated this worldview, or is that just kind of your best practice from day one anyways?
I've had a few people have trouble paying me, and they did eventually, but it always really bothered me because then I was not sure if I was going to get it. Especially during the times when early on when I was working full time at my previous job many years ago, that extra income was so helpful. So if I was going to be coming home and then doing more work only for somebody to not pay me, that would really piss me off. Because even though I was managing okay, was doing okay, that money really still helps. So that's why I think about that. And thankfully, I've not been stiffed on any money. That's mostly because the few people who have been like late or slow on payment turned out to be actually honest. And some of them, and like in a couple of cases, it was a matter of like, oh, this is a repeat customer. Like I've done stuff for them many times. And this time they're like, hey, I can't really do it now. Could I do it later? But like, you know what? You built credit with me. That's going to be person by person basis.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. And I will say, like, I haven't had to do this stuff to survive, so like take my points with a grain of salt. But I have thankfully, knock on wood, never had an issue with someone paying either. And I've always done the charging in advance, the whole thing method myself for similar thought processes. I just know that there are definitely artists out there who do the deposit mode and have generally been pretty good. I have seen so many artists, though, to echo your point, get screwed over by not charging until the end, and then the client ghosts them, or even worse, just says like, oh, I'm not going to pay you, or like shit like that, and then you get really fucked over. So I definitely echo that. But I guess, to the point about, you don't know who you mentioned earlier, like, oh, you don't know who these people are. Do you do any sort of like client screening? Because I know I do, like particularly when I'm getting commission from someone who I've never seen before, who it's it's a little note on your FA, and it's like from an account that's just a little paintbrush and has no favorites or no anything, or like maybe like 5 people they're following, and it isn't you, and it's like, I'd like a commission. I am always very apprehensive about those kinds of situations. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on the whole client screening thing, because I definitely do that.
Okay, I screen people for a variety of reasons, anywhere from like, taste as to what to expect as to how they might want you to do something. There are plenty of people who, if you look at their gallery, they get very much the same thing done over and over again. So you could kind of look at something and say, looks like I might be doing this. So now I have an idea of what I'm going to build. And, maybe I could do this like, bing, bang, boom, fast. And like, and simple on you. So that's one reason of doing it. Do you want to know if whoever you're dealing with might be a huge pain in the ass or somebody who might fuck you out of money? Then, sure. But it's hard to know that in the first place just by looking at somebody's profile. If you're going to be looking at somebody's profile, it's going to be anticipating what taste do they have, how comfortable you are with it, and what, and things like that. Because of how I work, I don't necessarily have to screen anybody because I put all of the onus on them. You want something from me? This is what I want from you. And if you give it to me, I will do the work and it'll be over. Because once I have everything that I want, if I find it comfortable, then that's it. The deal is pretty much done. After that, it's on me to deliver. So I'm lucky in that regard. But because I've done that, I've had plenty of troublesome clients, and therefore I have my own bit of experience. So when other commission artists, artisans, if you will, that they'll know that I've been doing it for a long time. So they'll ask me, "Hey, do you know this person?" And then I can tell them sometimes. I'm like, okay, so seeing as how this is your situation, this is what I know about this person. Is this something you want to put up with?
Yeah.
And I leave it in their hands.
I will say artists do talk to one another about this kind of stuff because I definitely have like said before, like, oh, like people have asked me, oh, do you know so and so? And I've been like, oh, like that person's a wonderful person to work with, blah, blah, blah. Again, I haven't really had many in the way of problem clients, but I've definitely, seen people be like, hey, this person is, bad news, watch out. So, I think it's also, it's a reminder that when you are looking to commission someone for art, it's important to also think about the other person on the other side of the screen. And that goes for artists too, you got to treat the people who are trying to give you money with, at least some level of respect. And, at the end of the day, obviously we want everyone to come away from these transactions, to put it like coldly, happy,
They are because, okay, all right, let's make sure that the focus is kept to the interest of the people watching. The transformation fandom loves more content. I love more content. You do too. All of us want more. It's not necessarily wrong or even unexpected. And if you have artists who are willing to do this as a service, especially if they're affordable or if their work is just really good, you never really know if they're doing it just because they think, you know what, I can do that for this crowd. I'm willing to do that. But their passion is not in it. If you make them unhappy, you lose that, because they will not want to deal with this group of people.
It's true. That's very true.
Yeah, and you also don't want to risk hurting the actual passion or love people may have for this stuff, because there are plenty of people who will do commissions and they might either want to stop altogether or they'll start considering it because they'll have a bunch of experiences and maybe they don't know what to do to make their situation better. There's no IRL. Every interaction with a person is an interaction with a person. That's it. Full stop. There's no IRL in online. Everything you're dealing with is with a human being, always. Always. And your choices and the things that you say and do are going to impact other people in some way. So always remember that. If you're trading money for something, take it seriously. Even if it's $10, $5, it's like $15, they won't miss it. No, fucking pay them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's important. And I think, I hope at least some of the past episodes have illuminated this as well. Like at the end of the day, like you said, everyone who is engaging with the stuff, there's a real person behind the computer screen, and we should be giving the same level of respect and care that we would if we were, talking to someone in person on the street, at a coffee shop, whatever, and I think that sometimes people think that the anonymity of the internet can hide certain things, but that's not necessarily the case. Now, that all being said, I know we've been chatting a lot about the artist side. I'd like to take a moment to kind of flip it towards the commissioner side, because over the years I've definitely noticed a lot of people who say like, hey, I would really like to commission art, but I have no idea how to go about doing it. I don't want to be considered a problem client or something. I just don't even know like where to start. What do I say? What do I do? How do I know where to go? Those kinds of things. So I was wondering, I guess, as a kind of starting point, what kind of tips would you have for someone who's looking to commission like transformation art?
Okay, know what you want. Then I will break this down for you. What is happening and to what? It is a person. It is a man. It is a woman. It is a trans person. Do those details really matter? You can be detailed, but you're going to have to do your best to figure out how much is too much and too little detail. If people got to consider 70 million things when doing the art, then that's going to be insufferable. So try to keep things as palatable as possible. The simpler the idea is to understand, the better. And when I say simple, That means you also have to try not to be vague. I do not like having to pull teeth to get information. That happens far too often. Please do not be the person who says, well, what do you want to draw? Because then that just makes me think, then donate it to me. Because I'm going to make something for me anyway eventually. You know, what I'm in the mood to draw, I will be in the mood for. What do you want? You want something. I know that some people, like some artists, are into like the conversation, like collaborative model of, you know, working with clientele. But, you know, plenty of people are not, and they just want to move along, you know, because the longer you take to start on a piece, that conversation is also costing them that time and money, you know, so it's best to just it's just best to know exactly what you want when you're going in. And also, if you're going to be describing something like erotic, don't like
use the words.
Don't use
use the words.
Don't horny post at people. I know that maybe and I'll explain what I mean. If you're going to, you know, it's like, yes, you know, when they're like writhing and thriving and ooh, it's just this feeling of ecstasy and release, and it's just something that I imagine is wonderful, and that's the kind of thing I want to draw. And like you know, obviously you like this, that's why you're getting it done. But you're kind of bringing me into your like vibes that I'm not asking to be brought into. You know, you're not getting people on your wavelength just because you're expressing like how it's like, oh, it's heating you up right now just thinking about it. Like, please don't do that. You could be as clinical as you want about it, even if it sounds a little weird, but at least it'll make sure that it keeps the boundaries clear between you and the artist. And I've had plenty of people who just kind of like fucking bloviate about the whole idea. And I'm just like, oh my God, I gotta like repeat what I think I understood from that so that I can get it done. Because on top of like, you know, crossing boundaries, you also end up wasting time because then you kind of got to figure out what they mean by the flowery language.
Okay, so that's a fair point, but I want to push back on something because you mentioned about the conversational thing and how that's not really a thing that you do. I know that at least in my pieces or like when I work with commissioners, oftentimes I will actually have an active back and forth at the very beginning and sometimes during the middle in terms of what someone might want out of a piece. And one of the things that I actually like about the conversational tone, you know, putting aside the horning posting, because I do agree on that front, like there's boundaries there and you need to be respectful of that. But when you're talking about, you know, a type of piece that maybe you want and you might not articulate it in the clearest way, if you're having a conversation, the artist can be like, okay, so you said this, is this what you mean? And sometimes that back and forth in the moment can actually be more time saving than having like, you know, a long like conversation extended over a period of time over like emails or something. And I guess what I mean is like, you know, like I will have conversations with on like Telegram or what have you, where like the other person is there in the moment and you actually hash out the idea yourself. And I don't know if maybe this is more because I'm coming from the photo manip lens, because that does require a lot more active participation from the person who is doing the commissioning, because you know I need them to like give the picture and do the pose. But I don't know. I found that the conversational piece can actually be quite helpful, again, provided that boundaries are respected and you're not like, you know, horny posting at the artist.
Okay. I'm not going to pretend that I think it's a bad idea to do. It's not. I like being able to collaborate ideas with people. I wanted that from the artistic community since from an artistic community since DeviantArt, when I joined that even like longer before FA. And I like being able to do that, but, you know, a lot of interactions have worn me down, and I feel less inclined to have a conversation with somebody who seems to not know where to even begin. Because what if I'm already stressed? I'm like, well, you know, I'd like to do this, so I have these extra, you know, this extra resources, extra money. And, it's like, let me just move along with this. And then, it's just like, what are you in the mood for? Oh, man, I'm going to be talking to you in the notes. Sometimes I'm going to be talking to you through notes, and you don't know how long that's going to take. And you could be doing this all week before finally starting. You could be also, and depending on your model, you could be having, what if you get a lot of customers in that time, a lot of interested people? You could be having a lot of conversations that, you have to split your attention for. I'm having 6 different conversations about what people want and how to do it. That's exhausting. Which is, if you're doing that for maybe a few people at a time, because that's how you work, then you're going to be fine. Because you're not, because that takes energy. If you're doing it with like 5, 6 people at a time, and just kind of like waiting on their replies and trying to figure out what each person wants and what to expect, that's overwhelming. So that's why I generally stick to, forget the conversational thing, but maybe put an asterisk on it. Like if you have a lot of people that you think you're going to be dealing with, and if you have like a certain amount of energy for your social reserves, remember how that works for you. Because then by the time you actually get to doing it, you're already tired. And you're tired of even thinking about each thing that you're going to have to do.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I think then, if someone is a commissioner and they want to avoid falling into that pitfall, obviously we've said, it's good to have an idea of what you want before you approach the commissioner. What kind of details do you think commissioners should provide? Because, as on a personal note, like I not only do commissions, but I get a lot of commissions. And, a lot of the times when I think about things that should be included, it's not just, oh, these are like the references for me, and these are the references for what I want to be becoming, and this is, the details of all the changes. Like I personally will always try to find pose references to like really illustrate what I'm talking about. But, not every artist needs that necessarily. And some artists will actually say, I'd rather have less. So do you think there's any things that commissioners should specifically be including when we say, like, you need to come with an idea?
Here's my charitability on behalf of people who buy arts. If the artist doesn't want references, then they need to make that clear as possible so you don't waste your time amassing those references. Especially if you do want to be clear. If you do like, oh man, I gotta try to find like the most accurate like photograph or something, and maybe it's a weird one, just like be conscientious of that. But back to, if you're going to be doing this, yes, the references are obviously important. If you're going to have a reference, make sure it's the clearest reference you got. If it's not like a final one, then understand that the artist will have to take liberties, clarify any points that you think they may have trouble on. Like, I know it's not visible in this, but they have this thing. So, yeah. If you're going to be someone who's regularly commissioning things, I recommend, and I know this also will cost money, but for your sake and for the sake of other artists, and just like try to get a decent reference sheet, something that is clear and evident, and let them be able to work out of it. The thing that shows everything that the artist needs to know. If you don't have a reference sheet, then do your best with a general descriptor and let the artist make the best of what they will with that. It's not fair to demand this accurate portrayal of a character if you don't have the right stuff available for them. Another thing that I found difficult to deal with is if your character exists across many different people's work, but it's not really a reference sheet. That can be difficult to deal with because the interpretations will have different details, either missing or added. I've had one client who they were very pleasant and everything to work with and understanding, but I told them, straight up, please get a reference sheet, because across like the entire spread of different artwork they've gotten of the character, they have had to tell me, oh, she has this, and she has this, and she has this. And I found those across like different pieces of art. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, that kind of thing, if you have to second guess yourself while you're working, is a huge pain, because then you have to keep wondering, like, do I have to go back and fix this or add this? You want the artist's experience to be as as unencumbered as possible.
Yeah.
And here's another thing. If an artist asks you a question, please answer clearly. As much as possible, avoid throwing the ball back in their court.
Mhm.
And if you are, make sure that you explicitly give them the permission to do whatever with this aspect. If they come at you and they're like, "Hey, I noticed that your character has this, or that in this position is whatever. What do you want me to do about that?" If your answer is do whatever you want to do, make sure you're clear on that. Please do not do half measures of like, I don't know, I guess you could do kind of whatever you want, but like, I was just thinking this and blah, 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 but I'm not really sure. And it's like, please make a decision.
Mhm.
Please let it go as smoothly as possible. Because if you're not sure, then
They're not sure.
yeah, yeah, and then there's like the possibility that maybe in the middle of doing it, you'll get a message like, "Oh, I finally know what I want," and it'll be like,
Okay, now I will say I will just stop and call myself out because I am the person who has multiple things from different artists and there is changes between each and I don't have a reference sheet, so that's at me. I apologize.
"Look,
Thankfully for me, I don't it doesn't matter to me the differences, but anyways, that's a whole other thing.
like if it doesn't matter to you, if there is
It
like
doesn't.
if there's a
No,
clear
because it's with the stripes on my Sona. Everything below the face, there's like no constancy between different pieces, but I don't care, so it doesn't bother me.
okay, fine, if it doesn't bother you, if you're gonna be easy on,
I wanted to throw that out there because I was like, this is at me. I mean, you didn't know, but like it's at me too. So
I've noticed because you don't have one. When I asked you so that I could draw you, I'm like, "Where's your reference sheet?" And you're like, "I don't really have one." And my brain was like, "Okay, at this point, I'm gonna take it as at least a little bit of an invitation to do like some things."
it is. It is. I really do need to get one at some point, and that is on my list. But anyways, it's neither here nor there. I think one of the things though that I also want to just make sure gets kind of expressed when it comes to like the whole commissioning process, particularly when it comes to TF art, if you are the subject, you can take pictures of yourself as the reference. I promise you, we're not going to like spread it around. Like, I cannot tell you how helpful that can be, both as someone who has like commissioned stuff and been like, I don't have a reference sheet of human me, but I have like plenty of like, safe for work. No, no porn, please. I have plenty of safe for work pictures references of myself that I can share with you, and that can be really helpful. And again, that depends on your comfort level, but I have always found that that can be really helpful in terms of getting what you're thinking about across. And that can go for things like poses as well. Like if you want to take a picture of yourself doing the pose, or you do like a stick figure sketch of the pose, I think both of those things can be incredibly helpful for the artist. And frankly, one of my little hacks, when I'm thinking of a pose, but I don't know how to like explain it in words, go look for another TF art piece. Not one that's like super similar to what you're doing, but at least one that has a similar pose. And then you can link that one and say, these are the changes to the actual pose I'm thinking about. And again, it doesn't need to be the same kind of like change, but this is the pose I'm thinking about. That can actually, in my opinion, help a lot. And every time I have both done that and had that done for me, it makes a hell of a lot of a difference. I know it can be kind of time consuming to go out and like look for the exact right pose you're thinking about. And I'm not saying you need to find exactly the right one, but if you can find one that's kind of close, at least you're giving the artist a starting point so that they can then build off of that and understand what you're looking for. And the other thing I'll just say as well, particularly when it comes to TF pieces, if you are thinking of a piece and you kind of have an idea of what you want in your head, don't just tell someone the percent of the TF that
Oh
you're on the way
man.
along. Because listen, I have been there too. When I was starting out, I also did that. I can hear the pain. When I was starting out too, I'd be like mid TF. I just want a mid TF, and it's like that could mean a million things. So like, please, 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 I promise you will be happier for it as well. Be specific as to what you're thinking about when you're talking about the progression of changes. Like say like, hey, I'm thinking mid-TF, this is what I'm thinking. Like it's gonna have the tail, there's gonna be fur growing in patches. We're gonna have like the snout like this. One of the feet is gonna be fully changed, the other one's not. The hands are like this. All those things. Like put down all those details. Obviously, don't be like. I'm actually like I'm less on the overly detailed one. I think that having those details helps a lot.
I'll simplify it for you
Okay,
then.
fine.
Here, the alternative
Sure.
is the things that you really want to see in the piece. Tell them, and if you have no idea how to like really accurately describe anything else, let the artist do what they want. Just let them do it. Please do
Yeah.
not please do not spend time agonizing over the details that you are not sure of. Trust these people to do something for you. You can be very pleasantly surprised. At the very least, you'll get what you want. I want to focus on, the hands turning into paws. The rest, I'm kind of like, whatever. I've seen what you do. I like it. Cool. I'll do that. I'll make sure that, I make a pose or something, put that front and center, make sure that somehow I end up showing like both sides of the hands. Shit like that. Let us be creative. And, back to the thing about you saying, like, references for yourself. Yes, extremely helpful. If you're going to take a picture of your face, the best thing to do is to take it like, front, side, maybe like 3/4, things like that, especially if, different angles of your face, because trying to interpret your profile from just the front can also be very difficult.
Yes.
So if you're really concerned about you looking like you in a piece, keep in mind, like, your face at different angles does matter.
Yes.
The other thing is you saying how if you have no idea how to explain a pose, draw it. Yes, please do that. If you think you are very bad at art and I can barely draw a stick figure, things like that, do it anyway. I guarantee you that for artists worth their salt, they'll look at that and they'll say, oh, I know what they're trying to do. Here's how I will make it into something that works.
Yeah. I think almost any artist would see like a stick figure drawing to show like a pose or something and be like, oh, thank God. Like that's my reaction. When I get that, I'm like, oh, thank God. Like I know where I'm going now. I have a roadmap.
Yeah, like there's a client goes by Siggy, and I want to shout him out because he was my first customer, and
He's great.
and and it's Sigmar, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
he's fucking great. And he loves his griffins, and he's just like, oh, I'm sorry, I like weird things, but he's pleasant to work with. He's understanding. If you think something costs something, he won't like try to haggle you down or anything. Which please don't ever do that. Do not ever do that. If you do not have the money, either wait until you have it, or just bite the bullet and be like, I cannot afford that.
Mm-hmm.
But like the point I'm getting at is. He would ask for things, and and like English is his second language, so he speaks English just fine. But if he has trouble articulating something, he's like, here, just let me draw it for you. And it is a rudimentary drawing, and I'm like, I get it, and that made me be able to do the things that he wants. And what happens? He's happy about it afterward. He's happy with the results. So be willing to actually draw just like the most basic thing. If you're bad at drawing, that doesn't matter. We'll fix the rest of it for you. You don't have to go like super hard on it. If you have like a clear reference and a really super basic drawing, and we could put those two together with the idea that you want us to make, we can do our best to put it together, and it'll be much smoother than trying to just kind of solidify an abstraction. Because the problem with talking about a pose is that you might end up going stream of consciousness and just kind of thinking, I want to do this kind of pose with these things and these things and these things happening. And, you send that idea over, and then the artist is reading it and you think, wait a minute, that stuff isn't possible. I can't show those things in that kind of pose. And then you have to like go back, correct them, and then like see. Yeah. So to wrap it up, yes, I agree. Draw basic poses. If you can't really describe them, have your references ready if they are you, and if you wanted to at least just have your face and the body can be interpreted, different angles of your face, very helpful. This is going to be very, very conditional. but I have to say it. If you're going to send nudes, do not ever send them before getting consent. Because
Yes, I mean, yes.
because I have accepted nudes from clients, and I always tell them, listen, oh, here's another thing, because it must be said. Please state if it's going to be like a piece of porn or not. If it's going to be erotic, it's just like, I want this to be a NSFW, blah blah blah, or a safe for work. Like, start immediately with that.
Oh yeah, that should always be the first detail. That's a good point.
Always. So that way,
and check the TOS of the person you're commissioning to make sure they actually do NSFW stuff. Because sometimes, there are artists who will do it for their own stuff, but they might not do it for commissions. And I feel like sometimes that is a complication that can come up when people start doing commissions. Like, please read the TOS before you commission someone. I promise you there is very important information in there, and it will help you actually conform your request to something that the artist is more likely to take on. Like, usually in the TOS, you will have I do these things. These are things I'm okay with discussing. These are my no's. This is my process. This is how I'm going to do the stuff. If you have a commission request, this is how I like the request. Read all of that stuff in advance and tailor your request to those instructions. I promise you, you will have a much easier time, and you will be more likely to get the commission from said artist as well.
Put a pin in that, because there's something more to say about that too.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I'm holding a pin for something else too. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So I have 2 pins, but I think after this, let's get to them so we don't forget them, all right?
Yeah.
But
okay.
yeah, if you're going to send references of yourself and you're going to be nudes, be very clear about that. And I don't know, man, even tell them, hey, look, this is going to be me bending over and you'll see stuff. That's going to be part of the thing. Is that okay with you? Things like that. Respect the artist's boundaries, okay? Because for me, I thought, you know what? In art, I have to look at naked people if I want the best idea of how to construct a person. All right? So, as far as I'm concerned, I decided a long time ago that I would be like a doctor. I will look at the subject, and I will do something with that. It has been very helpful for me. There have been nudes that people have taken of themselves and given them to me as references, and I'm just you know what? Altering this into a mid-transformation? Not too hard. Cool. But please respect these people's boundaries, respect these artists' boundaries. In general. I think in general, if you're just hey, would you mind if I sent you, selfies or something like that? Just tell them yeah, this is going to be me. I'm going to take a photo of you. Cool with that? Whether or not it's going to be you nude. Yeah, it's very, very helpful.
I will say, again, this is very specific to just me because I do photo manips. I feel like I've seen a lot more of that stuff than most artists will, just because, again, of the nature of the subject. It doesn't necessarily bother me, but I agree. I think it's better to say in advance and to respect the artist's boundaries. The thing I wanted to come back to that I put a pin in that I hadn't had a chance to bring up yet, on the artistic freedom piece that you talked about way towards the beginning of the episode. I did actually want to comment on that because I will say there has been a number of different commissioners who have said here's my picture, do whatever you want with it. And then that's the commission. That does not bother me. I'm fine to do that. Oftentimes in those cases, I will actually narrow it down a little bit because, again, I want to make sure the commissioner is happy. I might be okay, you said whatever I want. Does something from this list sound okay? And then if not, obviously you go from there. But, and this is the big but, and I think this just ties into your earlier point, make sure that the artist is okay with an artistic freedom pitch. And usually people who are okay with that will say so in their profiles. There are definitely a number of artists who say hey, if you want this to be artistic freedom, you can put that in and I will consider it. But they will say that explicitly. If they don't say that explicitly, reconsider whether or not you're going to pitch it in that way, because like you said, Libra, there are a lot of artists who it's if it's just draw whatever I want, that I don't know what the point of this being a quote unquote commission
is. Yeah, just please donate it to me. I'll still appreciate it. I'll still draw something. Yeah. But anyways, that was my pin. You said you had a pin. Okay, no, I'll also build on that. Being vague about art, the reason you can be comfortable with that, and that's good. My problem with it is because I've had experiences with people who would do that to me, and then I would make a choice, and then later on, once I've done a lot of work, they'll be I don't really like that. And I want to avoid that as much as possible, which is why I put a lot of responsibility on my clients, to be informative. Please do not be shy about what you want.
Yeah, be loud about it.
If you're going to be the kind of person who feels like they might be disappointed or they might be rejected, if your idea gets rejected, well, that kind of sucks. But trust me, a decent human being, which I hope many artists are, will just simply say, no, I am not comfortable with that, and move on. You're not gonna catch flack. And if you do catch flack, you probably don't want to work with them anyway. Just there have been plenty of people that have had to just tell them, no, I am not comfortable with that, or I'm not interested in that. And that's it. Disappointing, sure, but please don't be vague about it, because I hated being told that something wasn't to a liking after giving me freedom for a very long time. After they explicitly tell me, oh yeah, just do whatever. After a certain point, whatever's not okay. Don't do that. That's why I am wary of people who are vague about things they want. And that is also why, here's a tip for you too. Specifically you.
Sorry, is this at me or
yeah,
this
you.
is at the audience?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You can see me, so I'm pointing at you. If anybody says yeah, just do whatever you want, make sure, and I don't even give a shit if they had it pretty plain wording, just get them to answer the question so you understand that I'm actually going to be taking all the liberties I want with these aspects, and they say yes, that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I will be honest, the majority of people who ask me for creative freedom commissions these days are repeat customers. So I already have a relationship with them. And so I feel pretty comfortable with it. But you're right. Especially if it's a first time person, it's really important to make sure you get that sort of written consent to do whatever it is. So that then you don't have an issue where you go back and the person's not happy, even though they said, do whatever you want or those kinds of things.
Yeah. And this is really and this is really because, again, your experiences have been better with this. You like who you get to see. You like what you get to see. I'm not into the same stuff you are, so, I'm not as lucky in that respect.
Not
which
entirely.
Is why
there's overlap.
A bit of overlap, but that's also why I say, you know what? I am a doctor. I want to be as plainly spoken about this as it possibly can.
Yeah.
And yeah, I could bloviate on about this because I've had so many bad experiences. But
the pin.
But the other pin was about checking people's terms of service. I know this may seem redundant, but I feel like it must be said in targeted with laser focus. Read the prices. Please read the prices. Please actually read the prices. Please. Please. If it's on stream and somebody says off the cuff, how much does this cost? You could link them your price sheet or even answer the question. But if somebody notes you, on FA, right? And they haven't, and you haven't looked, and they haven't looked for a price sheet, and they start asking you how much something would be, without even any kind of basis, that can drive me up a wall, especially if they know, I want a quick piece of this, and they don't have any qualifiers that are outstanding. They'll be like, how much does this cost? I'm like, how much do you think it costs? You didn't tell me anything else. I have nothing to figure out. That's how much it costs to do. You didn't tell me that it was very detailed. You didn't tell me about a background. Just you just told me, can I get a quick mid TF? How much does that cost? That is plainly stated right there. Can you please tell me something else that I would need to know? Please don't make me ask the question. If you think something that you want to buy may exceed the cost, the base cost, be like, hey, I want this under this category, and I know it costs this much, but my character has X, Y, Z, and I kind of want to see this added. How much would that cost? That's good for the mood because it means that you are doing your due diligence and that artists are not wasting time putting together, infographics for you to try to make it as fast as possible. That's why we do it. We do it so that this thing can go smoothly. And whether you're conversational or not, all right, if you're putting information out for people to, so that they have a basis. If you have information out, you took the time to make that, and they're not paying attention to it, that fucking sucks.
Yeah. Well, I think the best analogy I can think of is ordering from a restaurant. You go into a restaurant and you're going into, I'm going to show my whole ass here. You're going into the Cheesecake Factory, okay? You know they serve cheesecake there. Also, you know there's like these dishes. I mean, they've got a menu a mile long. This was a bad example. But anyways, you know what they serve at Cheesecake Factory, okay? You go into the restaurant and you go, okay, I know that these are the parameters of what the artist does. So I'm not going to come in here and be like, I want sushi. I don't think Cheesecake Factory does sushi. I don't know. You're not going in there for sushi. You're going in there for food on the Cheesecake Factory menu. You sit down. There's a menu. And you go, oh, there's these things that I can get for these prices. And, maybe I want this thing, but I'm going to see if I can have a little extra, this, that, or the other thing. And maybe that's the thing where I need to ask about the extra prices. That's the kind of mindset that generally a commissioner should have when you're going into these situations. Like, read your menu. It's been made there for you. Mm-hmm. It's there to help you. You know what restaurant you're going in, i.e. the TOS and the artist, and you know what their art is like. If you do all that stuff and then you come forward with your idea, again, you can just plainly state it, keeping in mind, of course, know what you've read. I promise you, the process will go smoothly. You just need to do your due diligence beforehand and have an idea of what it is that you want and what the artist is good at doing. And after that, you're golden. Like, I haven't heard of anyone who did all those things and put forward their ideas and then had issues. So it really is just a matter of keeping in mind what you're going about wanting to get, and then putting all of that information down and finding someone who matches with that. And if anything, I think sometimes the hardest part can just be finding someone whose art you like, who is also open for commissions. That's a whole other story that we don't even have time to get into because I don't think there's any way to solve that. But, again, if you have all this information prepared in advance, your process will just be that much more smooth. And you'll get cheesecake at the end. Yeah. Maybe.
Unless they're out of cheesecake because business is booming.
Yeah.
I know it sounds so redundant to just say that, but read the prices and just come in it knowing. The analogy of a menu is good because if you have a question, you don't. I want to treat people who do a service with as much respect as possible. Like, respect their intelligence. Yeah. Are there going to be like dumb people sometimes that are jerks or Yes, there will be, but start with a baseline of respect and respect for people's intelligence. So,
and vice versa, you also got to be respectful back to your commissioners. And I know we are, obviously, but there are definitely people out there who have had bad experiences with artists. And I would implore the artists as well. Like, if someone has been doing their due diligence or makes maybe one or two mistakes, show them a little bit of grace, this is a two-way street.
Yes, I agree with that. And that I wish that went without saying, but please don't fuck with your clients like that. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't be a piece of shit. People got to try to be as good to each other as possible in all this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, like you said earlier, this is a smaller kind of niche community, and if we have bad vibes, it will drive people away. Well, so it's always really important to be respectful and also not just be an ass,
Not only is it a niche community that's small, it could grow a little bit more, or at least be a little healthier if you deal well with people who may not be in it, who are dipping their toes in, who may get approached for something, because friends, both former and current, who have wanted to start doing commission art, who are not into it. This has been either very difficult or very enriching for them, depending on how people have treated them. And that's you want artists especially to at least be able to be like, yeah, I'm cool with this. And likewise, don't make people don't fucking what's the word I'm even looking for that isn't don't fuck with people. That's all I can stick. Like, please don't fuck with the
Yeah.
customers like that. I
I think that's a fine statement to have. Don't fuck with customers and don't fuck with your customers.
yeah, there's plenty on how you can fuck that up from both ends. And I try to
Yeah.
be good to everybody that I can, even if it like I'm not like super warm and friendly with like every single interaction. That doesn't mean I'm a jerk. I'm just very plain spoken. Like, this is what you want? Okay, you understand that? All right, cool. Thanks for your patience. I will be doing these things, and I hope you like it when it's done. You know, that's me. Yeah, that's like the very least that I think anyone should expect from anybody. You know, if you're doing commission stuff.
Yeah.
And man, there's like so much to talk about with like so many of these things.
Yeah.
And I know transformation is really hard. I think that's another thing that like it takes a lot of work for like a sequence. And it takes a lot of work to learn the nuances of a bunch of different creatures and animals. If you're the kind of person who likes, you know, a very specific things to be done a specific way, otherwise, you know, it completely throws you off in what you're looking for. Please be mindful that everybody will stylize things differently, and also, you know, your standard may not be met by somebody else's. That's why I make my own shit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. But I think, you know, just to kind of like bring it to a close, because I know we're getting close on time here.
Yeah.
I think it's really important just to remember, as a commissioner, if you are not sure how to go about commissioning art, follow like these very easy steps. Number one, read the TOS of the artist. Number two, formulate the idea that you want to have depicted. Number three, look at the menu and see what the likely cost is associated with the tier you're looking for. And then number four, write a message to the artist if they're open for commissions and say, hey, this is the specific thing I'm looking for. Here are my references. Here's maybe a pose reference too. These are the specific things I would like. Is that something you're able to do? 4 steps. 4 steps, baby. That's all you got to do. I promise. And just be respectful.
And I'll add one more thing. Just please answer the questions as clearly as possible. That I know that may seem like a given, but just again, the vague responses, vague posting, anything like that. Just please answer the questions, and things will move along, and it'll be cool. It'll be very cool. I guarantee you.
No, I completely agree.
So yeah, that was pretty good. And you know, when you got artists who are open for work, there's a lot of stories. Maybe we could talk about some of those later, you know, episodes and conversations, especially if anybody's interested in either like horror stories or like some good ones. There are good stories too that I really
so
appreciate.
Many good stories.
Yeah, because shit, man, I don't think there's anything quite like this with like how people want it and how much it means to them. You know, this is all really personal.
The impact, God, some of the impact I've heard back from some of the pieces I've done is just incredible. And again, that's I think one of the things that, particularly for me, given this isn't like my full-time job or anything, or it has never been like a need for survival for me, like that's what I do it for. I do it more for that impact than anything else. So, you know, there's so many positive stories out there, and you know, I know we're running low on time for an interlude here, but there's a lot out there, and I am thankful for those stories when I get to hear them. So
yeah, I hope this helped everybody out, and yeah, I just want to make sure that this is as easy as possible for everybody. I want us all to enjoy getting it and making it. That's really it.
That's the goal.
So yeah, after all this, I mean, again, if you like the content, please, Patreon, TF Tuesday Pod, Patreon/TF Tuesday Pod. Is that how it goes?
Yep, that's how it goes.
Okay.
You got it down to a science.
Yep.
And
there's the Twitter, TF Tuesday Pod.
Yes, that's the Twitter too. For now, we'll see how long that lasts.
We'll use it as much as we can. If this becomes one of those awkward kind of like, oh my god, this is that's no longer relevant. I don't care. I'll be amused. We'll work something out though.
This episode brought to you by Nebula.
Ooh, Nebula.
Nebula, something I can't access in Canada. Fuck you, Nebula.
What?
Give me $5.
Why am I even?
Yeah, we don't get it up here.
Fuck that. Okay, change my mind about Nebula.
Yeah, it's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. But yeah, I hope y'all have a good week. Keep an open mind. Stay TFy. We will see you back here again next week for more exciting content. But
Tweet,
in
tweet
the
and comment
meantime,
questions at us.
yes, we always read them, and we will be addressing all of the questions we have built up soon. So stay tuned.
Later, everybody.
See you later.